Hello and welcome. The wealthiest citizens of Sharn never touch the ground. They drift through their entire lives in a realm of crystalline spires and enchanted gardens, suspended thousands of feet above the smoke and grime of the city below. Their children grow up believing the clouds are carpets, that rain falls upward from some distant, irrelevant place, and that the struggles of common folk are as remote and theoretical as the surface of the moons. This is Skyway, the floating district of Sharn, where gravity itself bends to privilege, where the air tastes of imported perfumes rather than industrial smoke, and where a single dinner party can cost more than a family in the lower wards will earn in a lifetime. You are about to discover why this impossible district represents not just wealth, but a fundamental divide in the world of Eberron, a physical manifestation of power that literally places the elite above everyone else. Skyway hovers at the pinnacle of Sharn's vertical society, floating independently from the city's tower-bound districts, while Sharn itself rises in massive towers that scrape the sky, reaching heights that would seem impossible without the manifest zones that enhance magical construction. Skyway exists apart, detached, self-contained. The district comprises solidified clouds suspended in the air above both the central plateau and the Menthais plateau, drifting high above even the tallest towers. These floating islands of cloud stuff, held aloft by the manifest zone tied to Serenia, the plane of storms and endless skies, support an entire community of the impossibly wealthy. The district divides into two sections, azure and brilliant, each hovering over its respective plateau below. You need to understand the sheer audacity of Skyway's existence. In a city already defined by impossible verticality, where towers rise a mile into the sky and neighborhoods stack atop one another in dizzying layers, Skyway managed to go further. The district does not merely top Sharn's towers. It rejects them entirely, existing in its own space, its own reality, built upon clouds given solid form through the magic of the Serenia Manifest Zone. Skyway represents the most dramatic demonstration of what magic makes possible in Sharn. The cloud stuff beneath the mansions and shops remains stable, solid enough to support massive stone structures and elaborate gardens. Yet, it retains a certain otherworldly quality that reminds you this place should not exist by any natural law. The population of Skyway numbers only around 1,200 souls at any given time, though this count fluctuates as nobles travel or maintain multiple residences across Sharn and beyond. This tiny fraction of Sharn's population, a city of over 200,000 people, claims an entire floating district for themselves. The exclusivity defines the appeal as much as the luxury itself. Anyone with sufficient gold might purchase fine furnishings, or employ talented servants. But only those accepted into the highest echelons of society can call Skyway home. The district represents the ultimate gatekeeping mechanism, a neighborhood that literally exists beyond the reach of common citizens. Azure hovers over the southern portion, positioned roughly above the Menthise Plateau, while Brilliant occupies the northern section, suspended over the central plateau. The two districts appear almost identical in character and composition, distinguished primarily by their position rather than any significant architectural or social differences. Both feature expansive estates, unlike anything found among the lower towers, with churning vistas of cloud stuff forming the elegant landscape. In places, the cloud matter on which the ward is built is shaped, permanently or temporarily, into elegant statues or the semblance of trees, decorative flourishes that demonstrate the casual application of magic to purely aesthetic purposes. Servants scurry about from fabulous mansions to exquisite shops, while the gentry who call this place home parade in state, often riding griffins or hippogriffs as they call upon their counterparts. At the center of Skyway, where Azure and Brilliant meet, Cloudpool Park stands as testimony to the fantastic power of magic available to the wealthy. Wispy cloud stuff is shaped throughout the park to resemble exquisitely detailed trees, their leaves rustling in the ever-present breeze, despite being formed from solidified cloud rather than wood and chlorophyll. The cloudscape rolls in gentle hills, forming beautiful lawns where the residents of Skyway enjoy picnics and long walks. Pursuits that seem quaint and pastoral despite occurring thousands of feet above the ground. At the center of the park lies a large pool of crystal clear ice that affords a spectacular view of the city below to those brave enough to stand on it or peer over the edge. This frozen window creates a vertiginous experience, allowing park visitors to gaze directly down at Sharn sprawling beneath their feet, a constant reminder of their elevated position in both the literal and social sense. The manifest zone that makes Skyway possible represents one of the most powerful and stable magical anomalies in all of Sharn. Manifest zones occur where the boundaries between Eberron and the plains grow thin, allowing the properties and laws of those other realms to bleed through into the material world. Sharn sits atop numerous manifest zones tied to Serenia, the azure sky, which explains how the city's towers can reach such impossible heights without collapsing under their own weight. The plane of Serenia embodies concepts of flight, ascension, and freedom from earthly limitations. Its influence throughout Sharn reduces the effective weight of structures, allowing towers to rise far higher than conventional engineering would permit. But the zone affecting Skyway demonstrates Serenia's power in its purest form, creating solid clouds identical to those that drift through the plain itself. These Sirenia clouds appear identical to mundane clouds from a distance, typical stratus or cumulus formations, but they possess fundamentally different properties. They feel soft to the touch, yet provide solid support, capable of bearing tremendous weight without compressing or dissipating. They generally lack any sort of indigenous life, making them an ideal base for aerial colonization. A blank canvas upon which the wealthy could build their impossible district. The floating district of Skyway rises from a foundation of exactly this type of solidified cloud stuff, anchored in place by magical artifice, but sustained primarily by the natural properties of the manifest zone. Without the Sirenia connection, Skyway could not exist, or would require such massive expenditures of magical energy to maintain that even the wealthiest families would find it prohibitively expensive. The physical sensation of entering Skyway strikes visitors immediately. As you approach via flying carriage or one of the limited bridges that connect to the towers below, the air itself changes. The smoke and noise that characterize even Upper Sharn simply vanish, filtered out by permanent weather control enchantments that maintain perfect atmospheric conditions throughout the district. The temperature remains perpetually comfortable, never too hot or cold, adjusting subtly to match what magical sensors determine is ideal. Even the wind obeys careful regulation. Breezes flow through the district in pleasant patterns, strong enough to carry scents from flowering gardens, but never so strong as to disturb an outdoor luncheon or scatter papers from an open window. The silence of Skyway creates one of the most striking contrasts with the city below. The roar of Sharn, the constant background hum of hundreds of thousands of people going about their lives, the clatter of industry and commerce and daily existence, none of it penetrates here. Instead, you hear carefully curated soundscapes. The splash of fountains, musical and rhythmic. The rustle of leaves, both real and sculpted from cloud stuff. Distant chamber music drifting from open windows. Soft conversations conducted in cultured tones. The district is described as almost silent, a pocket of tranquility floating high above the hubbub of the city. For residents who have never known anything else, this quiet represents normalcy. For visitors from the lower wards, the absence of urban noise feels profoundly unsettling, a reminder that they have entered a fundamentally different world. The architecture of Skyway reflects a philosophy fundamentally different from the rest of Sharn. In the tower-bound districts below, even wealthy neighborhoods must accommodate the vertical nature of the city. Buildings rise on narrow footprints, stretching upward rather than outward, packed together to maximize the limited platform space atop each tower. But Skyway has no such constraints. Here, estates sprawl horizontally, spreading across the solidified clouds with casual confidence. The structures embrace styles from across Galafar's history and from various nations and cultures. Prior to the last war, noble families from across the 5 nations maintained mansions here, creating an architectural showcase of Galafar's diverse traditions. Some of these places remain in the hands of their original owners, maintained as they have been for generations. Others were seized by the crown of Breland during the last war and sold to wealthy citizens who lacked noble lineages, but possessed sufficient gold to purchase entry into this exclusive realm. This influx of new residents during and after the last war brought more diversity to Skyway than the district had known in previous centuries. Dragon-marked heirs now live alongside traditional nobility, their wealth and magical gifts granting them access that pedigree alone once determined. Even some wealthy criminals have managed to establish themselves in Skyway, their gold opening doors that their reputations should have kept firmly closed. The old noble families view these newcomers with varying degrees of acceptance, from grudging tolerance to outright disdain. But the economics of maintaining Skyway increasingly require broader participation than the traditional aristocracy alone can provide. The grandest estate in Skyway belongs to the Eberron family, whose mansion dominates its surroundings and serves as the social center of the district. The Eberrons represent one of the oldest and most powerful families in Sharn, their wealth rivaling that of the Kundarak clan. Tain Gold funded the construction of many of Sharn's towers, and the family owns vast sections of the city. When the Eberrons built their mansion on Skyway, they ordered the architects to design a banquet hall that would seat 60 families and their servants. The original 60 families were those that received standing invitations to the first Tain Gala, a monthly celebration that has become an institution in Sharn. The guest list of the Tain Gala defines the social order of the city, determining who counts among Sharn's aristocratic elite. Lady Celeria Eberron, the current matriarch of the family, serves as the queen of high society in Sharn. She manages the guest list for the Tain Gala with careful attention, maintaining tradition while occasionally making shocking decisions that reshape the social landscape. Recently, she expelled the Ermaros family from the 60 and gave their place to Sedin Boromir, a surprising advancement for a family that began as cliffside criminals. This decision sent shockwaves through Skyway society, demonstrating that even in this bastion of tradition and privilege, power remains fluid and subject to the whims of those who control access to the highest social circles. Each month on the first Far, the Tain Gala brings together the wealthiest and most powerful families of Sharn to mingle, to see and be seen, to share news and gossip. The families with permanent invitations to the gala, the 60, are the royalty of Sharn, their status acknowledged and reinforced through this monthly gathering. In addition to these aristocrats and wealthy gentry, Lady Celeria does her best to invite a few unusual celebrities to entertain her guests, artists, poets, and sometimes adventurers. These temporary guests receive fantastic food and drink, generous gifts, and a temporary increase in status that lasts for the following month. An adventurer known to be a friend of Lady Erting often receives invitations to other events or other forms of special consideration. A valuable currency in a city where social connections determine access to power and opportunity. The restaurants of Skyway represent another dimension of the district's appeal, offering not just exceptional cuisine, but spectacular views that no establishment in the towers below can match. Perhaps the best known is the Celestial Vista restaurant, which has become something of a tourist attraction. The Maître d' Hotel cheerfully turns away visitors who have no reservations, and even those with reservations can be forced to wait an hour or more to be seated. The menu offers exotic fare from across Corvair, though it also includes less adventurous options to accommodate throngs of tourists who come for the view rather than the food. All of the food served in Skyway's restaurants is purified by House Galanda, an additional assurance of quality that justifies the extraordinary prices. The owner of the Celestial Vista is Evix Ermarasha, a member of the aristocracy who also serves as Skyway's representative on the Sharn City Council. Her dual role as restaurateur and politician exemplifies how business and governance intertwine among Skyway's elite. She owns the Celestial Vista along with other properties, leveraging her social position into economic advantage and vice versa. A meal at the Celestial Vista costs 75 silver pieces per person, including fine wine, a sum that exceeds what many Sharn residents earn in a month. Yet the restaurant remains perpetually booked, a testament to both its quality and the deep pockets of its clientele. For those in the know, however, the Celestial Vista represents a tourist trap, crowded and lacking the exclusivity that true sophistication demands. The Azure Gateway and the Cloud Dragon offer views as stunning, food no less impressive, and generally smaller crowds. The Azure Gateway serves an exotic menu featuring delights from Thrain, including fine steaks, Canathi specialties such as famous breaded veal and traditional sausage dishes, and Ondarian cuisine, including noodles and meats in tomato and oil-based sauces. The interesting thing about the Azure Gateway is that no one knows the identity of its owner, who is said to dine in the restaurant on a regular basis while remaining completely anonymous. Some people speculate that the owner is a doppelganger or some other shape-changer, adding an air of mystery to an already exclusive establishment. In truth, the Mater D Hotel, an aristocratic half-elf named Raven Malek, actually owns the restaurant, taking great delight in seating customers who spend their entire meal staring around trying to pick out the supposed mysterious owner. Gardens proliferate throughout Skyway in ways impossible anywhere else in Sharn. The manifest zone's influence allows plants to thrive in conditions that should prevent their survival. Trees that normally require specific soil compositions and carefully balanced nutrition grow in planting beds, suspended thousands of feet above the ground. The churning cloud stuff landscape is shaped to accommodate these gardens, creating rolling hills and level terraces where noble families cultivate displays of botanical excellence. Some gardens incorporate decorative applications of the cloud stuff itself, with sculpted cloud formations mimicking trees and other natural features. The juxtaposition of real plants and cloud sculptures creates surreal landscapes where distinguishing natural from artificial becomes difficult. Everything enhanced and perfected by magic and unlimited resources. Security in Skyway operates on multiple overlapping levels, creating one of the most thoroughly protected areas in all of Eberron. The most fundamental security measure is simple isolation. The district floats high above the tallest towers, accessible only via flying conveyances or limited bridge connections that can be easily monitored and controlled. Access requires authorization, and the guard force maintains detailed records of everyone who enters and exits. The security arrangements ensure that Skyway remains insulated from the chaos and crime that plague the lower wards, a sanctuary where the wealthy need never encounter the masses, whose labor sustains their lifestyle. This separation becomes most apparent during festivals and celebrations. When Skyway hosts grand events, with hundreds of guests arriving in decorated coaches, with music and laughter floating through the perfect air, with magical lights dancing overhead in spectacular displays. The people of Lower Sharn can look up and see the glow, hear faint echoes of the revelry. But they can never participate, can never attend, can only observe from a distance measured not just in feet, but in fundamental social reality. The physical separation of Skyway thus reinforces and manifests the social separation that defines Sharn's hierarchy. The wealthy live in the clouds because they can, because the magical resources required to sustain such a district vastly exceed the means of common citizens, because maintaining Skyway as an exclusive enclave serves as a constant reminder of power and privilege. The cost of maintaining residences in Skyway strains even the considerable resources of noble families, while the manifest zone provides foundational support, keeping the cloud stuff solid and stable. countless other systems require ongoing maintenance. Weather control spells need regular renewal. The bridges and walkways connecting different sections of the district incorporate permanent magic that must be inspected and recharged on strict schedules. The gardens need magical support to maintain plants from incompatible climates in an environment thousands of feet above natural soil. Every fountain, every light, every comfort enjoyed by residents demands ongoing investment of gold and magical resources. The nobles who live in Skyway dedicate significant portions of their wealth simply to maintaining their presence in this impossible place. Yet they consider it worthwhile. Living in Skyway confers status that no amount of wealth spent elsewhere can match. A mansion in Upper Central, however grand, remains part of the city proper, accessible to anyone willing to climb that far. But a floating estate separates you completely, elevates you literally above Sharn's masses. The address itself opens doors. Invitations from Skyway residents carry more weight. Business proposals from Skyway companies receive serious consideration. The children of Skyway families enter social circles closed to others, regardless of wealth. Marriages between Skyway houses consolidate power and create alliances that shape politics throughout the city and beyond. Simply listing Skyway as your district of residence establishes credibility and commands respect in ways that residents of lower districts can never achieve. As you drift through Skyway for the first time, perhaps arriving via an authorized flying coach after weeks of negotiating for permission to visit, the accumulated effect of these various elements creates an overwhelming impression. This is a place fundamentally different from anywhere else in Sharn, or perhaps in all of Eberron. A place where wealth transcends utility and becomes pure aesthetic expression, where magic serves not to advance civilization or defend against threats, but to create comfort and beauty for 1,200 souls, while hundreds of thousands toil in the city below, where the physical structure of society, always metaphorical when discussed in political terms, becomes literally, unavoidably visible in the form of solidified clouds that hover above everyone else. The air itself feels different here, and not just because of purification spells. There is a psychic weight to Skyway, a presence that presses against your awareness and reminds you constantly of where you are. Every perfect garden sculpted from cloud stuff, every exclusive restaurant with its months-long waiting list, every stunning view of the city sprawling far below speaks the same message in different voices. You have entered a realm of privilege so extreme, so concentrated, that it warrants its own floating district, its own pocket of reality separate from the mundane world below. And whether you come as visitor, as servant, or as resident, Skyway changes you. forces you to confront the vast inequalities that structure society in Eberron. The way magic amplifies rather than levels social hierarchies, creating divides so profound they might as well be walls of force, impassable and eternal. Section 2. The History and Birth of Skyway. The story of Skyway does not begin with clouds or magic alone. To understand how an entire district came to float above the greatest city in Corvair, you must first travel back through the centuries to a time when the 5 nations stood united under a single crown. You must understand the ambition of kings, the power of dragon-marked houses, and the wealth of nobles who dreamed of reaching heights that no one had touched before. When Galifar I unified the 5 nations and established the kingdom that would bear his name, he inherited a land scarred by centuries of conflict. Among the many challenges facing the new king was the ruined city on the Dagger River, a place that had fallen into legend and fear. For over 500 years, the remnants of what had once been a thriving metropolis lay abandoned, cursed by the terrible magics unleashed during the War of the Mark. The aberrant Lord Hallas Tarkanan and the Lady of the Plague had called upon powers so devastating that earthquakes shattered the city. Rivers of lava flowed up from the depths, and deadly plagues swept through the streets. The survivors fled, and superstitious folk avoided the ruins, whispering of curses that lingered in the darkness. But Galifar I was not a man deterred by superstition. He recognized what others feared to acknowledge, that the location held immense strategic and economic value. The city sat at the mouth of the Dagger River, commanding trade routes that connected the interior of the continent to the seas beyond. The ancient foundations built by the Dakani Empire still stood, massive monolithic structures that had endured for thousands of years. And most importantly, the city rested within a manifest zone linked to the plane of Serenia, the azure sky, a convergence of planar energies that enhanced magic related to flight and levitation. Galifar sent a force to rebuild the ruined city, and with them came the architects of a new age. House Cannith, the dragon-marked house bearing the mark of making, played a critical role in the reconstruction. Cannith artificers and engineers brought innovations that would transform not just Sharn, but the entire face of Corvair. They developed the flying buttress, a magical architectural technique that allowed for the construction of towers far taller than conventional building methods could support. These buttresses, infused with Cannith steel and enchantments, worked in harmony with the Serenia manifest zone to create structures that seemed to defy gravity itself. Dwarf engineers from the Maror holds joined the reconstruction effort, bringing centuries of expertise in stonework and underground construction. These master craftsmen understood how to work with the ancient Dakani foundations. How to seal away the cursed lower levels while building upward toward the sky. They brought discipline, precision, and an unmatched understanding of how stone and metal could be shaped to endure for generations. Brelish nobles saw opportunity in this grand project. Chief among the early investors was the Ertin family, who would become one of the most powerful noble families in Breland. The Ertins purchased vast amounts of property in the growing city, particularly tenement buildings that would house the workers and merchants flooding into Sharn. Over the centuries, the family made a fortune from these holdings, earning them the nickname the slumlords of Sharn. But they also established themselves as pillars of high society, their wealth and influence growing alongside the city itself. As Sharn grew upward, reaching heights that would have been impossible without the Serenia Manifest Zone, the city's architects and nobles began to dream of something even more extraordinary. The Manifest Zone did not simply enhance flight magic. It made possible enchantments and constructions that would fail completely beyond its boundaries. Magical lifts carried passengers between the levels of the ever-rising towers. Sky coaches floated through the air, transporting goods and people across distances that would have taken hours to walk. Floating platforms suspended walkways between buildings, creating a three-dimensional city unlike anything the world had ever seen. But the nobles of the 5 nations wanted more than towers. They wanted separation, elevation not just in the physical sense, but in the social hierarchy they believed themselves to occupy. They wanted a place where their feet would never touch the ground, where they could live literally above the common folk who filled the streets below. And in the Manifest Zone linked to Serenia, they found the means to make this vision real. The exact date of Skyway's construction is not recorded in the histories you can easily access, but it emerged during the height of the kingdom of Galifar's power and prosperity. Artificers and wizards, likely working with House Cannith and drawing on research into the Manifest Zone, discovered how to solidify the clouds themselves. Not mere illusion or temporary enchantment, but actual clouds pulled from the upper atmosphere and given substance and permanence through powerful magic. These solidified clouds became the foundation for an entirely new district, one that would float hundreds of feet above even the highest towers of Sharn. 2 great sections of cloud stuff were shaped and anchored in the sky. The first, which would become known as Azure, floated above the Menthais Plateau. The second, called Brilliant, hovered over Central Plateau. Together, these floating islands formed Skyway, a district suspended between Earth and heaven, accessible only by flight. The construction of Skyway represented the pinnacle of magical architecture in the kingdom of Galifar. The district included not just homes, but entire estates. complete with gardens, courtyards, and amenities that rivaled the finest palaces on the ground. Cloudpool Park was sculpted from the cloud stuff itself, with window panels of ice providing views of the city far below. Mansions rose on the solid clouds, their architecture blending traditional styles from across the 5 nations, with innovations made possible only through magic. During the golden age of the Kingdom of Galifar, Skyway became more than just another wealthy neighborhood. It evolved into a symbol of the kingdom's unity and prosperity, a place where the noble families from all 5 nations could maintain estates and mingle as equals. Sharn nobles built grand homes on the floating islands, their architecture reflecting the artistic sensibilities for which Sire was famous. Ondarian aristocrats established residences that showcased their nation's emphasis on magical innovation and scholarly pursuits. Thrain's faithful nobility constructed estates that incorporated elements of their devotion to the silver flame. Canathi military families brought their own stern aesthetic to their Skyway properties. And Brelish nobles, including the Urtings, dominated the social landscape as hosts and power brokers. The district became a neutral ground where the politics and intrigues of the 5 nations played out in drawing rooms and gardens high above the streets of Sharn. Marriages were arranged between noble families from different nations. Alliances were forged over elaborate dinners, and the future of the kingdom was shaped in conversations that took place hundreds of feet in the air. Skyway represented the ideal of Galifar, different peoples and traditions united under one sky, literally and figuratively elevated above the divisions that existed on the ground. The concept of the 60 families emerged during this period, a designation that came to define Skyway's social elite. The name derived from the capacity of the banquet hall at Tain Manor, which could seat exactly 60 families at formal dinners. To be counted among the 60 families meant having a recognized place in Skyway society, the right to attend the most exclusive gatherings, and the social standing that came with residence in the floating district. The Urting family controlled access to these events through their famous Tain Gala, a monthly gathering that became the center of high society in Sharn. Lady Celeria Urting would eventually become the unquestioned arbiter of who belonged in Skyway's highest circles, her guest list determining social standing for generations. The dragon-marked houses also established a presence in Skyway, though their relationship with the noble families was complex. House Canath, whose innovations had made Sharn's vertical growth possible, maintained connections with the district's elite. Other houses provided services that the wealthy residents required, from House Galanda's luxury hospitality to House Lirendar's mastery of weather and wind. Some heirs of the dragon-marked houses even secured their own estates in Skyway. Their wealth and magical abilities granting them entrance to circles that might otherwise have excluded them based on bloodline alone. For nearly 900 years, the kingdom of Galifar endured. Sharn prospered as a center of trade, diplomacy, and intrigue, growing ever upward as new towers were added and old ones expanded. Skyway remained the crown jewel of the city, a place where the wealthy and powerful from across Corvair gathered to display their status and influence. But in 894 year of the kingdom, the unthinkable happened. King Jarrah died without a clear successor, and his children could not agree on who should wear the crown. The 5 nations that Galifar I had united split apart, each claiming independence and refusing to bow to the others. The last war had begun. For over a century, the war raged across Corvair. Nations that had once been united turned against one another. Dragon-marked houses were forced to navigate competing loyalties, and the dream of a unified kingdom crumbled into blood and ash. Sharn, as the largest city in Breland and a crucial economic and strategic center, found itself deeply entangled in the conflict. House Cannith's enclave in Sharn became one of the main production centers for the magic weapons and potions that Breland purchased from the house, including the majority of Breland's warforged soldiers. The war transformed Skyway in ways that would have been unimaginable during the kingdom's golden age. The floating district had been a symbol of unity, a place where noble families from all 5 nations lived as neighbors. But as the war dragged on year after year, decade after decade, that unity disintegrated. Sharn nobles who had maintained estates in Skyway for generations suddenly found themselves viewed with suspicion or open hostility by their Brelish neighbors. When Sire's military campaigns threatened Brelish territory, or when Sharn agents were discovered operating in Sharn, the political situation for Skyway's Sharn residents became increasingly precarious. The Brelish crown took action that would permanently alter Skyway's character. Estates belonging to noble families from enemy nations were seized, declared forfeit as a consequence of the war. The crown's justification was strategic necessity and national security, but the reality was more complex. Some of the seized properties genuinely belonged to families actively engaged in the war effort against Breland. Others were taken from nobles who had tried to remain neutral, or who had even expressed sympathy for Breland's position. The process was not always fair, and political connections often mattered more than actual loyalty when determining which estates would be confiscated. These seized properties did not remain in crown hands for long. Breland needed funds to continue prosecuting the war, and Skyway estates represented tremendous value. The crown sold the confiscated mansions to to wealthy citizens of Breland, individuals who had the gold necessary to purchase property in the most exclusive district in Corvair, but who lacked the ancient bloodlines that had traditionally defined Skyway society. This influx of new residents brought unprecedented diversity to the floating district. Heirs of the dragon-marked houses, already present in limited numbers, increased their holdings as their families' wartime profits swelled their coffers. Merchants who had made fortunes supplying the war effort-purchased mansions that had once belonged to Sharn or Ondarian aristocrats. War profiteers, individuals whose wealth came from less savory sources, acquired estates and used their new addresses to purchase respectability. Even wealthy criminals found their way into Skyway, their gold opening doors that would have remained firmly closed during the kingdom's reign. The old noble families who had maintained their position in Skyway watched these changes with a mixture of horror and grudging acceptance. Some adapted, recognizing that the world had changed and that clinging to old prejudices would only isolate them. Others retreated into increasingly rigid social circles, using the Tain Gala and similar exclusive gatherings to maintain boundaries that the sale of estates had breached. Lady Celeria Erting found herself in a position of even greater power during this period, as her control over the guest list for Skyway's most prestigious events gave her the ability to grant or withhold social legitimacy to the new arrivals. The day of mourning in 994 year of the kingdom brought new tragedy to Skyway's Sharn population, when the entire nation of Sire was destroyed in a single catastrophic event, replaced by a wasteland of dead gray mists. Thousands of Sharn refugees fled to neighboring nations. Many made their way to Sharn, where the district of high walls in Lower Tavik's Landing was converted to house displaced Sirens. But among the refugees were nobles, families who had once held wealth and status in Sire, and who now found themselves with nothing but their names and their memories. Some of these Sirren nobles had maintained connections to estates in Skyway, properties that had somehow survived the seizures during the war. Others sought refuge with relatives or allies who still held positions in the floating district. Their presence served as a constant reminder of what the last war had cost, of the price of ambition and pride. The Sirren refugees who managed to remain in or near Skyway existed in a strange twilight, neither fully accepted nor completely cast out. Symbols of a nation that no longer existed. The Treaty of Thronehold in 996 year of the kingdom officially ended the last war, though it did not restore the kingdom of Galifar. The 5 nations remained independent, their borders redrawn, and their relationships fundamentally altered by over a century of conflict. Sharn continued to function as the largest city in Breland, and a major center of commerce and diplomacy. But the scars of the war ran deep. Skyway emerged from the war transformed. The district was no longer the symbol of unity it had been during the kingdom's reign. Instead, it had become something more complex, a place where old nobility mixed uneasily with new wealth, where traditional social hierarchies competed with the realities of a changed world. The approximately 1,200 residents of the floating district represented not a unified elite, but a collection of families, houses, and individuals whose only common ground was their wealth and their address above the clouds. The history of how Skyway came to be, from the vision of Galifar, the first, to the innovations of House Cannith, from the golden age of the kingdom to the disruptions of the last war, shaped everything about the district you see floating above Sharn today. The solidified clouds that form its foundation, the estates that dot its surface, the social structures that govern its residents, all of these carry the weight of centuries. To understand Skyway in the present, you must understand its past, the ambitions that raised it into the sky, and the conflicts that transformed it into something both more and less than its creators intended. Section 3. Power, Politics, and Social Hierarchy. The power that flows through Skyway does not move through official channels or formal government structures. Instead, it operates through social networks, family alliances, and the unspoken hierarchies that have developed over centuries. To understand who truly controls the floating district, you must look beyond titles and public offices, into the drawing rooms where deals are made, the exclusive gatherings where reputations are built or destroyed, and the intricate web of relationships that binds the elite together. The 60 families remain the core of Skyway's power structure, though the composition of this elite group has shifted dramatically since the last war. The name still derives from the capacity of Tain Manor's banquet hall, and Lady Celeria Erting maintains her position as the arbiter of who belongs. But the families who receive invitations to the monthly Tain Gala no longer represent a unified aristocracy descended from Galifar's nobility. Instead, they form a complex tapestry of old money and new wealth, traditional bloodlines and dragon-marked power, legitimate business and criminal enterprise barely concealed behind a veneer of respectability. The Erting family sits at the apex of this social pyramid, their position secured not just by wealth, but by their role as gatekeepers to Skyway society. Lady Celeria Erting wields power that few monarchs could match within her domain. A single decision to include or exclude a family from the Tain Gala can elevate them to the heights of Sharn society, or cast them into social obscurity. Her choices ripple outward, affecting business deals, marriage prospects, political alliances, and the complex web of favors and obligations that constitute the real currency of power in Skyway. The Erting fortune, built over centuries of property ownership throughout Sharn, gives the family economic leverage to match their social influence. They own vast sections of the city, particularly tenement buildings in the lower wards, earning them the unflattering nickname of slumlords. This could suggest a certain hypocrisy, that the family most associated with Skyway's refinement and culture derives much of its wealth from the suffering of those who can barely afford shelter thousands of feet below. Yet within Skyway, such contradictions remain unspoken, politely ignored by residents who understand that questioning the Ertings would be questioning the very foundation of the social order. Lady Celeria's recent decision to expel the Ermaros family from the 60 and replace them with Seddon Borummer sent shockwaves through Skyway society. The Borummer clan, originally operating out of Cliffside, built their fortune through criminal enterprise, controlling much of Sharn's illegal gambling, smuggling, and other illicit activities. For generations, the Borummers existed outside respectable society, their wealth acknowledged, but their company shunned by the aristocracy. Lady Celeria's decision changed that calculus overnight. This could imply several things about the shifting power dynamics in post-war Skyway. The old noble families, depleted by the last war and struggling to maintain their expensive lifestyles in the floating district, may need the kind of liquid capital that successful criminals can provide. The Borummers' extensive network of connections throughout Sharn, from the lowest depths of the cogs to the heights of Upper Central, represents a different kind of power than traditional aristocracy commands. By bringing the Borummers into the 60, Lady Celeria may be acknowledging that in the changed world after the Treaty of Thronehold, influence matters more than lineage. The old guard reacted to Seddon Borummer's elevation with predictable outrage, at least in private. Families who trace their ancestry back to the founding of Galifar found themselves dining alongside a man whose grandfather ran card games in cliffside taverns. But their protests remained muted, because crossing Lady Celeria Erting risks far more than accepting the Borummers as peers. Those who complained too loudly might find their own invitations to future galas mysteriously delayed or lost. Their daughters might not receive invitations to the season's most important social events. Their business partners might suddenly become unavailable for meetings. In Skyway, social death can lead to financial ruin, and Lady Celeria controls the mechanisms of both. The demographics within Skyway reflect the tension between old money and new wealth that defines the district in the post-war era. Traditional Galifar nobility, families whose names appear in genealogies stretching back centuries, once dominated the district entirely. But the last war disrupted old hierarchies and created new fortunes, The seizure and sale of estates by Brellin's crown opened Skyway to successful merchants, industrialists, and dragon-marked heirs who possessed money but lacked traditional noble lineages. These newer residents face subtle discrimination from established families, invited to certain events, but excluded from others, tolerated but never fully accepted. The old guard maintains control through social mechanisms, through exclusive clubs and societies that require sponsorship for membership, through marriage patterns that favor connection to recognized noble houses. Money alone, it seems, cannot buy true belonging in Skyway, though it can purchase entry and proximity to those who do belong. The dragon-marked houses occupy a unique position in Skyway's social hierarchy, wielding undeniable power while remaining somewhat apart from traditional nobility. House Cannith's role in building Sharn and developing the magical innovations that made the city possible grants them respect and access throughout the floating district. House Kundarak controls the banking and security services that protect the wealth of Skyway's residents, making them indispensable. House Galanda provides luxury hospitality and ensures the purity of food served in Skyway's restaurants. House Lee Rendar operates the flying vessels and weather magic that keep the district accessible and comfortable. Yet, despite their essential services and considerable wealth, the dragon-marked houses exist in an ambiguous social space. Noble families who would never question a dragon-marked heir's right to attend the Tain Gala might hesitate before arranging a marriage between their daughter and that same heir. The houses are respected, even feared for their monopolistic control over certain forms of magic. But they are not quite aristocracy in the traditional sense. This creates a complex dance of deference and distance, where house representatives conduct business in Skyway, manage essential infrastructure, and sometimes attend social functions, but remain separate from the innermost circles of power. The political influence that flows from Skyway extends far beyond the floating district's physical boundaries. Evix Ermarasha serves as Skyway's representative on the Sharn City Council, a position that allows her to advocate for the district's interests while simultaneously running the Celestial Vista restaurant and other business ventures. Her dual role exemplifies how the elite of Skyway intertwine politics and commerce, using official positions to advance private interests and leveraging business success to gain political influence. Based on what we know about Sharn's governance structure, we can assume that Skyway's small population and concentrated wealth give the district disproportionate influence over city policies. When Lady Ermarasha speaks in council chambers, she represents only about 1,200 residents. Yet those residents control more wealth than entire lower wards combined. Their taxes fund significant portions of the city's budget. Their business decisions affect employment throughout Sharn. Their social connections extend to the royal court in Rote and to power centers across Breland. A council member who antagonizes Skyway's representative may find that influential people throughout the city suddenly lose interest in supporting their initiatives. The stark contrast between Skyway and the lower districts of Sharn defines much of the city's social reality. While residents of the floating district enjoy perfect weather, manicured gardens, and restaurants, where a single meal costs more than most families earn in a month, hundreds of thousands of people below struggle with poverty, crime, and the daily challenges of survival. In one of the most vertically stratified cities in Corvair, the physical separation mirrors and reinforces the social separation, creating a literal hierarchy where your position in space corresponds to your position in society. In Lower Dura, families crowd into tenements, often owned by the Ertings or other Skyway families, where multiple generations share rooms that would serve as closets in a Skyway mansion. The air reeks of industrial smoke, unwashed bodies, and the accumulated waste of thousands of people living in close quarters. Crime flourishes in the shadows between the massive tower bases, with gangs like Dosk and the Boromir clan fighting for control of territories where the city watch rarely ventures. Children grow up never seeing natural sunlight, their world defined by the artificial lights that illuminate the perpetual twilight of the lower levels. In the cogs, the industrial heart of Sharn that lies even below the lowest residential districts, conditions become harsher still. Warforged laborers and human workers toil in foundries and workshops, producing the goods that fuel Sharn's economy and enrich the families who own the facilities. The heat from forges and the smoke from chimneys create an environment that would kill most visitors from Skyway within days. Yet thousands work there every day because the alternative is starvation. This inequality creates obvious tensions. The residents of Lower Sharn can look up through the gaps between towers and see Skyway floating in the distance, a glowing jewel suspended in the sky. During festivals and celebrations, when Skyway hosts elaborate parties with magical lights dancing above the cloud stuff, those lights are visible from far below. The contrast between the revelry above and the struggle below serves as a constant reminder of the vast gulf that separates Sharn's citizens from one another. Yet direct conflict between the classes remains rare, suppressed by a combination of physical barriers, social structures, and the sheer difficulty of organizing resistance across Sharn's fragmented geography. The city's vertical nature makes it easy to isolate districts from one another. The Watch maintains checkpoints at key bridges and lift stations, controlling movement between levels. And most importantly, the lower classes remain too occupied with daily survival to organize effective challenges to the established order. The criminal organizations that operate throughout Sharn maintain their own complex relationships with Skyway's elite. The Boromir clan's recent acceptance into the 60 demonstrates how successful criminals can translate their wealth into social legitimacy. But this acceptance comes with conditions, implicit understandings about how power should be exercised and which activities can be acknowledged publicly. Seddon Boromir may attend the Tain Gala, but he does not discuss the gambling dens and smuggling operations that fund his attendance. Dosk, the monstrous crime syndicate that has challenged the Boromirs for control of Sharn's underworld, remains firmly excluded from Skyway society. Their methods are too violent, their members too obviously monstrous, their leadership too alien to human social norms. This could imply that there are limits to how much respectability gold can purchase, that some origins remain too tainted for even the pragmatic elite of Skyway to overlook. Or it may simply mean that Dosk has not yet accumulated sufficient wealth and power to demand entry, that given enough time and success, even they might find doors opening. The access restrictions that govern entry to Skyway serve as the most visible manifestation of the district's exclusivity. Unlike other districts of Sharn, where anyone can walk the streets regardless of their wealth or social standing, Skyway requires authorization to visit. Guards monitor the limited bridges that connect the floating district to towers below, checking credentials and maintaining detailed records of everyone who enters and exits. Flying vessels that approach Skyway without proper clearance face interception by House Lee Rendar security or private guards employed by the district's residents. These security measures serve multiple purposes. They protect the physical safety of residents and their property, preventing theft and violence. They maintain the social exclusivity that defines Skyway's appeal, ensuring that the wealthy never need to encounter the masses. And they serve as a constant reminder of who holds power in Sharn, of who can move freely through the city and who must seek permission. For those born in Skyway, these restrictions represent normalcy, the natural order of things. Children raised in the floating district grow up understanding that they belong to a separate category of humanity, elevated literally and figuratively above the common folk. They attend exclusive schools, socialize only with other children from approved families, and learn from an early age the subtle signals that distinguish insider from outsider. By the time they reach adulthood, the hierarchies that structure Skyway society feel as natural and inevitable as the solidified clouds beneath their feet. For those who serve in Skyway but do not belong to the elite, the daily experience involves navigating a complex set of rules and expectations. Servants who maintain the gardens prepare the meals, and clean the mansions must present themselves properly. Speak deferentially, and remember always that they exist in these spaces on sufferance. They enter through designated passages, remain invisible when possible, and never presume familiarity with their employers. The boundary between servant and resident remains absolute, policed through social mechanisms more powerful than any law. The marriage patterns among Skyway families reveal the careful strategizing that goes into maintaining and consolidating power. Noble families arrange matches that strengthen alliances, merge fortunes, and preserve bloodlines they consider important. A daughter from one of the 60 might marry a dragon-marked heir, bringing traditional social standing to a house that possesses magical power. A son from an old Galifar family might marry into one of the new merchant dynasties, exchanging prestige for desperately needed capital. These arrangements play out over years, with families positioning their children through careful management of social interactions, education, and public appearances. Love, in such calculations, remains a secondary consideration at best. The stakes are too high, the implications too far-reaching, to allow something as unpredictable as personal affection to determine family alliances. Young people in Skyway learn early that their marriages will serve family interests, that their personal desires must align with or be subordinated to the needs of their house. Some rebel against these expectations, pursuing forbidden romances or refusing arranged matches. But the social and economic consequences of such rebellion can be devastating. The future of Skyway's power structure remains uncertain in the years following the Treaty of Thronehold. The old certainties that governed the district during the Kingdom of Galifar have crumbled, replaced by a more chaotic and competitive environment. New fortunes rise and fall with dizzying speed. Traditional noble families find their influence challenged by aggressive newcomers. The dragon-marked houses grow ever more powerful, their monopolies on magical services making them indispensable to modern life. And criminal organizations like the Boromers demonstrate that even illegal enterprises can purchase legitimacy given sufficient resources. Lady Celeria Ertin's decisions in the coming years will likely shape Skyway for generations. Will she continue to broaden the definition of who belongs among the 60, opening the doors to ever more diverse sources of wealth and power? Or will she attempt to restore traditional hierarchies, using her social influence to push back against the changes that the last war set in motion? The answer may determine whether Skyway remains a bastion of old nobility or transforms into something new. A meritocracy of wealth where money matters more than blood. What remains certain is that Skyway will continue to float above Sharn, literally and metaphorically elevated above the masses. The manifest zone that makes the district possible shows no signs of weakening. The families who live there show no inclination to abandon their privileged position. And the vast majority of Sharn's population will continue to look up at the floating district from far below, seeing it as a symbol of everything they can never have, a realm as distant and unattainable as the moons themselves. Section 4. Life among the clouds, architecture and culture. The architecture of Skyway stands as testimony to what becomes possible when magical resources meet unlimited wealth and freedom from conventional constraints. In the tower-bound districts below, even the wealthiest neighborhoods must accommodate Sharn's vertical nature, building upward on narrow platforms, with every square foot of space carefully allocated. But Skyway rejects these limitations entirely, spreading horizontally across the solidified clouds with the kind of casual extravagance that only those who have never worried about space or money can achieve. The estates that dot the floating district showcase architectural styles from across the history of Galifar and the diverse cultures of the 5 nations. Prior to the last war, noble families from each nation maintained mansions here, bringing with them the building traditions of their homelands. This created an extraordinary collection of structures, a living museum of Galifaran architecture, where Sharn artistic elegance stands beside Ondarian magical innovation, where Kanathi military austerity contrasts with Thrain's devotional grandeur, and where Brellish pragmatism mingles with all of them. The Sharn estates, those that still stand after the day of mourning and the seizures of the last war, exemplify the artistic sensibilities for which that lost nation was renowned. These structures emphasize beauty and harmony, with flowing lines that seem organic rather than constructed. Gardens integrate seamlessly with living spaces, bringing nature into the heart of the home. The architects who designed these mansions understood that a building should please the eye as much as serve practical purposes, that aesthetics matter as much as utility. Walking through a Sharn estate, you encounter rooms designed not for specific functions, but for the creation of mood, spaces meant to inspire contemplation or joy or peaceful reflection. The Ondarian residences showcase that nation's emphasis on magical innovation and scholarly pursuits. These homes incorporate enchantments at every level, from climate control systems far more sophisticated than those used elsewhere in Skyway to architectural features that would be impossible without constant magical maintenance. Some Ondarian estates include libraries that rival those of universities, collections of books and scrolls gathered over generations. Others feature workshops and laboratories where noble mages conduct research into arcane mysteries. The buildings themselves often serve as demonstrations of magical theory, their very structure incorporating principles that push the boundaries of what artifice can achieve. Thrain's faithful nobility brought their devotion to the silver flame into their Skyway properties. These estates often include private chapels or meditation chambers, spaces set aside for prayer and spiritual contemplation. The architecture tends toward the vertical, even in Skyway's horizontal environment, with towers and spires reaching upward, as if straining toward the divine. Symbolic elements appear throughout, flames worked into decorative motifs, silver incorporated into structural elements, and windows positioned to catch the light in ways that create specific effects at certain times of day. For Thrain nobles, even a vacation home in Skyway serves as an expression of faith, a reminder that wealth and power come with spiritual responsibilities. The Kanathi military families constructed estates that reflect their nation's martial traditions and appreciation for discipline. These buildings favor clean lines over ornamentation, function over pure aesthetics. The layouts often follow military logic, with clear sight lines, defensible positions, and an overall sense of order that extends from the architecture into the grounds and gardens. Yet this austerity possesses its own beauty, a severe elegance that speaks to different values than the flowing grace of Sharn design or the elaborate enchantments of Ondarian homes. Walking through a Kanathi estate, you feel the weight of tradition, the accumulated discipline of a people who have weathered centuries of hardship and emerged stronger for it. The Brelish nobles, including the powerful Erton family, dominate the social landscape of Skyway, and their architectural choices reflect a pragmatic approach to displays of wealth. Brelish estates tend to be large, designed for entertaining and for housing the extended family networks that characterize aristocratic life. Tain Manor stands as the premier example. Its massive banquet hall, capable of seating 60 families, defining the very structure of Skyway society. The building serves not just as a home, but as a political instrument, a space designed to facilitate the gatherings and negotiations that determine who holds power in Sharn. Beyond these national styles, individual families have constructed homes that reflect personal tastes, family histories, or simple desire to stand out in a district where everyone possesses wealth. Some estates incorporate architectural elements from beyond Corvair, drawing inspiration from distant lands reached through trade or diplomatic missions. Others push magical architecture to its limits, creating structures that seem to defy physics, even in a district that already floats on solidified clouds. Towers that twist in impossible spirals, gardens that grow upside down from ceiling surfaces, rooms that exist in multiple spaces simultaneously through careful application of dimensional magic. All of these exist somewhere in Skyway, testaments to what becomes possible when resources are unlimited. The gardens of Skyway deserve special attention, representing some of the most impressive horticultural achievements in all of Eberron. The manifest zone's influence allows plants to thrive in conditions that should prevent their survival. Thousands of feet above natural soil in an environment sustained entirely through magic. Noble families compete to create the most impressive displays, importing rare species from across Corvair and beyond, cultivating plants that normally require completely different climates in adjacent beds. Some gardens focus on single themes, collections of roses from every known variety, or displays of flowering trees that bloom in carefully orchestrated sequences throughout the year. Others aim for diversity, cramming as many different species as possible into the available space to create living catalogs of botanical wonders. The most ambitious gardens incorporate the cloudstuff itself into the design, sculpting the solidified clouds into forms that complement or contrast with the living plants. Trees made of cloudstuff stand beside real trees, their leaves rustling in the perpetual breeze despite being formed from condensed vapor rather than wood and leaf. The maintenance required for these gardens exceeds what most people can imagine. Teams of servants work constantly, pruning, watering, fertilizing, and monitoring the health of plants that exist far from their natural environments. House Lirendar, whether mages adjust atmospheric conditions to match the needs of different species, creating microclimates within individual gardens. Druids and nature priests sometimes find employment in Skyway, their magical connections to plant life making them valuable for maintaining the most delicate specimens. The annual cost of maintaining a major Skyway garden can exceed the total income of a successful merchant in the lower wards. Yet the families consider it worthwhile, viewing their gardens as living statements of wealth and taste. Cloudpool Park represents the apex of Skyway's horticultural and architectural achievements, a shared space where the district's residents can enjoy carefully curated nature without the exclusivity of private estates. The park sprawls across the meeting point of Azure and Brilliant, covering more ground than some entire districts in the towers below. Wispy cloudstuff, sculpted to resemble trees, creates surreal forests where distinguishing real from artificial becomes impossible without close examination. Walking paths wind through the landscape, offering constantly changing vistas and carefully planned views. At the heart of Cloudpool Park lies the frozen viewing pool, a sheet of crystal clear ice that provides a window directly down to Sharn far below. Standing on this ice, looking down at the city sprawling thousands of feet beneath your feet, creates a vertiginous experience that never quite becomes comfortable, no matter how many times you visit. The pool serves as a constant reminder of Skyway's separation from the rest of Sharn, a literal demonstration of the distance between the floating district and the masses below. Some residents avoid the pool entirely, uncomfortable with the implications of staring down at the city they have literally risen above. Others make a point of visiting regularly, treating it as a meditation on their position in Sharn's hierarchy. The cultural practices and social customs that govern daily life in Skyway reflect centuries of aristocratic tradition modified by the unique circumstances of the floating district. Calling cards remain essential for social interaction, with elaborate rules governing when and how they should be presented. Servants deliver these cards between estates, carrying messages that range from simple greetings to complex negotiations conducted through carefully chosen words and symbols. The failure to observe proper protocols around calling cards can result in social ostracism, marking you as someone who does not understand how refined society operates. Dress codes in Skyway maintain standards that would seem absurdly formal in the districts below. Even casual afternoon visits require specific styles of clothing, with different occasions demanding different levels of formality. The wealthy employ personal tailors and maintain wardrobes that contain dozens of outfits, each appropriate for specific social situations. Fashion trends change with dizzying speed, driven by competition among the elite to demonstrate their awareness of the latest styles from Fairhaven, Thrain, and other cultural centers. What was fashionable last month becomes hopelessly dated this month, forcing constant expenditure on new clothing to avoid the social death that comes from appearing behind the times. Afternoon tea represents one of the most important social rituals in Skyway, an apparently simple gathering that serves as arena for complex social maneuvering. Ladies and occasionally gentlemen gather in drawing rooms to sip imported tea, sample delicate pastries purified by House Galanda, and engage in conversations that seem pleasant on the surface, but carry layers of meaning understood only by those fluent in the subtle language of aristocratic discourse. A compliment might conceal an insult. A seemingly innocent question might probe for weaknesses, and an invitation, extended or withheld, can signal shifting alliances. Those who attend these gatherings must remain constantly alert, parsing every word and gesture for hidden significance. Entertainment in Skyway takes forms both familiar and unique to the floating district. Theater performances, musical recitals, and art exhibitions draw audiences from among the elite, with noble families competing to host the most impressive cultural events. Some wealthy residents maintain private theaters in their estates, staging productions for carefully selected guests. Others sponsor artists and performers, providing patronage in exchange for exclusive access to their work. The monthly Tain Gala represents the pinnacle of Skyway's social calendar, the event that everyone who matters attends, and everyone excluded desperately wishes to join. Each month on the first far, the invited families gather at Tane Manor for an evening of dining, dancing, conversation, and the careful observation of social hierarchies. Lady Celeria Ertain personally oversees every detail, from the seating arrangements that subtly indicate each family's current standing to the selection of entertainment that will delight her guests. The gala serves multiple purposes simultaneously. It is a social gathering, a political forum, a business networking opportunity, and a theatrical performance where everyone present plays roles they have rehearsed their entire lives. The food and drink served at the Tane Gala and at other Skyway gatherings represent another form of competitive display. Exotic ingredients imported from across Corvair and beyond appear on menus, demonstrating both wealth and connections. Rare wines from vineyards destroyed during the last war command astronomical prices, their scarcity adding to their appeal. House Galanda purifies everything, ensuring that no mundane contamination mars the dining experience. The presentation matters as much as the taste, with each course arranged to create visual art on the plate. The restaurants of Skyway, particularly establishments like the Celestial Vista, the Azure Gateway, and the Cloud Dragon, serve as important social spaces where residents can see and be seen. A meal at the Celestial Vista costs 75 silver pieces per person, including wine. Yet the restaurant remains constantly booked months in advance. The appeal lies not just in the food or the spectacular views, though both are exceptional, but in the opportunity to demonstrate that you can afford such extravagance casually, that a sum which would support a lower ward family for a month means nothing to you. The Azure Gateway adds an element of mystery to the dining experience, with its anonymous owner supposedly dining among the guests. Patrons spend their meals speculating about which other diners might be the mysterious proprietor, unaware that the Maitre d' Hotel Raven Malek actually owns the establishment and delights in their fruitless searching. This playfulness represents a rare injection of humor into Skyway's often rigid social environment, a reminder that even among the elite, people enjoy games and secrets. Leisure activities in Skyway reflect the district's unique environment and the unlimited resources available to residents. Riding griffins or hippogriffs represents a popular pastime, with noble families maintaining stables of these magical creatures. Aerial races and exhibitions provide entertainment and opportunities for young nobles to demonstrate their skill and courage. Some families organize hunting expeditions, using their flying mounts to pursue prey in the mountains beyond Sharn, or in the wilderness areas that still exist within the manifest zone's influence. Cloudpool Park offers more sedate pleasures, with families enjoying picnics on the sculpted lawns or taking long walks through the carefully maintained landscapes. Children play in supervised areas, their games watched by attentive nurses and governesses who ensure that nothing untoward occurs. These apparently simple activities take on different significance in Skyway, where even a casual afternoon in the park serves as opportunity for social observation and networking. For the servants who maintain Skyway's estates and serve its residents, daily life follows completely different patterns than those enjoyed by their employers. They rise before dawn to begin preparations for the day, lighting fires, preparing meals, and ensuring that everything is perfect before the noble family's wake. Their work continues throughout the day, cleaning, cooking, serving, and performing the countless tasks required to maintain the illusion of effortless luxury. They retire late, after completing the evening's duties and preparing for the next day. The servants exist in Skyway, but are not truly of it, occupying a liminal space where they must be present, yet invisible, essential yet ignored. They learn to move through rooms without drawing attention, to anticipate needs before they are spoken, to maintain the careful fiction that the wealthy live in a world where unpleasant necessities simply take care of themselves. The best servants become nearly invisible, their presence acknowledged only when something goes wrong, when the illusion of automatic luxury falters. Security measures in Skyway extend far beyond the guards who monitor access points, and the records kept of everyone who enters the district. Each major estate maintains its own security force, trained guards who protect the property and its residents from potential threats. These private forces coordinate with district-wide security, but answer ultimately to the families who employ them. Some families hire adventurers or retired military personnel, individuals with combat experience and magical abilities who can respond to serious threats. Magical protections layer throughout the district, from alarm spells that detect intruders to wards that prevent unauthorized teleportation. The wealthiest families employ dedicated wizards or artificers to maintain and upgrade these defenses, creating overlapping systems that make unauthorized entry nearly impossible. Some estates incorporate constructs into their security arrangements, magical guardians that never sleep and cannot be bribed or deceived. The overall effect creates one of the most secure locations in all of Eberron, a place where violent crime is virtually unknown, and where residents can live without fear of the dangers that plague the lower wards. This security comes at tremendous cost, both in gold spent on guards and magical defenses, and in the isolation it creates. Skyway becomes a bubble, separated not just physically, but socially and psychologically from the rest of Sharn. Residents can live their entire lives without encountering crime, poverty, or violence, without confronting the realities that define existence for the vast majority of the city's population. This insulation shapes the worldview of those raised in Skyway in profound ways. Children grow up believing that the world is safe, orderly, and designed for their comfort. They learn that problems can be solved by summoning servants or spending money. They come to see the struggles of those below as distant and theoretical, as abstract political issues rather than lived reality. By the time they reach adulthood, many Skyway residents have developed a fundamental inability to comprehend how the other 99% of Sharn lives. The atmosphere of Skyway, beyond the physical air quality maintained by weather control spells, carries a psychological weight that affects everyone who spends time there. For residents, particularly those born into this rarefied environment, the district represents normalcy, the baseline against which all other experiences are measured. For visitors from the lower wards, whether servants, tradespeople, or the rare adventurer granted temporary access, Skyway feels profoundly alien, a place where the normal rules of reality seem suspended. The silence, the perfect weather, the casual displays of wealth that would represent fortunes elsewhere. All of these combine to create an environment that reminds you constantly that you have entered a fundamentally different world. Section 5. Notable locations, figures, and Skyway's future. Beyond the grand estates and public spaces already discussed, Skyway contains specific landmarks and locations that define the district's character and serve essential functions for its residents. Tane Manor stands foremost among these, not just as the largest private residence in Skyway, but as the social and political heart of the floating district. The mansion's architecture reflects centuries of additions and modifications, each generation of the Eberron family adding their own touches to the structure. The famous banquet hall, designed to seat exactly 60 families with their servants, remains the centerpiece of the building. A vast space where crystal chandeliers hover overhead through permanent levitation spells, and where the walls display portraits of Tane ancestors stretching back to the founding of Sharn. The grounds surrounding Tane Manor rival Cloudpool park in their scope and ambition, covering acres of solidified cloud stuff shaped into rolling lawns, formal gardens, and ornamental groves. The family maintains a private menagerie, housing exotic creatures collected from across Corvair and beyond. Griffins and hippogriffs occupy elaborate stables, tended by handlers who have devoted their lives to caring for these magnificent beasts. In certain sections of the grounds, accessible only to family members and their most trusted guests, rare magical creatures dwell in carefully maintained habitats, living treasures that demonstrate the Erting's wealth and connections. The Erting family library represents another notable feature of the estate, though few outside the family have ever seen it. This collection, accumulated over generations, contains not just books, but historical documents, private correspondence, financial records, and genealogies that trace the connections between Sharn's elite families. Based on what we know about the Erting's position in Skyway society, we can assume this library serves as a repository of secrets and leverage. Information that Lady Celeria can draw upon when making decisions about who belongs among the 60 and who does not. Knowledge in Skyway as elsewhere represents a form of power as valuable as gold. The Celestial Vista restaurant, owned by Evix Ermarasha, functions as more than just a dining establishment. Its position as Skyway's most famous restaurant makes it a gathering place for residents and a destination for wealthy visitors from the lower wards who manage to secure the coveted reservations. The main dining room features floor-to-ceiling windows that provide panoramic views of Sharn below, creating the sensation of floating in space as you dine. Private rooms accommodate parties who desire discretion, offering the same exceptional cuisine and service while shielding conversations from curious ears. Lady Ermarasha uses her restaurant as an intelligence-gathering operation as much as a business. The conversations overheard by her carefully selected staff, providing insights into the machinations of Skyway's elite. The Azure Gateway, with its mysterious anonymous owner, occupies a building designed to embody elegance and sophistication. The exterior presents an understated facade that gives no hint of the luxury within, while the interior combines elements from across the 5 nations into a harmonious whole. The fact that Raven Malak, the Maître d' Hotel, actually owns the establishment while maintaining the fiction of a mysterious proprietor speaks to the playful side of Skyway culture. The delight that even the wealthy take in secrets and performances. Guests who dine at the Azure Gateway participate in this game whether they realize it or not. Their speculation about the owner's identity, providing entertainment for Malak and his staff. The Cloud Dragon caters to a slightly different clientele than the Celestial Vista or the Azure Gateway, focusing on residents rather than tourists and emphasizing privacy over spectacle. The restaurant maintains strict policies about discretion, with staff trained never to acknowledge who dines there or to repeat anything overheard. This makes the Cloud Dragon the preferred venue for sensitive business negotiations, for meetings between individuals who wish their association to remain private, and for romantic encounters that cannot become public knowledge. The establishment's reputation for absolute discretion makes it valuable beyond its considerable culinary merits. Skyway's shops and boutiques serve the needs of residents who demand the finest goods available anywhere in Corvair. These establishments import merchandise from across the continent and beyond, offering clothing, jewelry, artwork, and luxuries that cannot be found in the lower wards. The shops themselves become destinations, architectural showcases where the act of purchasing becomes an experience rather than a mere transaction. Personal shoppers assist customers in selecting items. Tailors and jewelers provide custom work, and the prices reflect not just the quality of goods, but the exclusivity of the venue. House Galanda maintains a presence in Skyway through several establishments that provide purified food and luxury hospitality services. While the dragon-marked house operates throughout Sharn, their Skyway facilities represent the pinnacle of their craft, offering levels of service and quality control that exceed even their already high standards. The house's mark of hospitality allows them to purify food and drink, removing any contamination or poison, an essential service in a district where social gatherings double as political battlegrounds, and where poisoning rivals has historical precedent. House Kundarak's presence in Skyway focuses on banking and security, maintaining vaults where the wealthy store their most precious possessions. The house's mark of warding makes their vaults virtually impregnable, protected by magical defenses that would take armies of wizards working in concert to breach. Noble families deposit gold, jewelry, important documents, and family heirlooms in these vaults, trusting House Kundarak's centuries-long reputation for absolute security. The fees charged for these services represent significant income for the house. Yet another way that Skyway's wealth flows through the dragon-marked house's hands. House Lirendar operates the Skycoach services that provide one of the primary means of accessing Skyway. Though individual companies, rather than the house itself, run most passenger operations, the house's mark of storm grants them mastery over weather and wind, making them essential for maintaining the perfect atmospheric conditions that Skyway residents expect. Lirendar weather mages work constantly to adjust temperature, wind speed, and precipitation, ensuring that the floating district remains comfortable regardless of natural conditions. This ongoing service generates substantial revenue for the house while making them indispensable to Skyway's continued existence. Among the noble families who call Skyway home beyond the Ertings, several hold particular importance in the district's social and political landscape. The Ermaros family, recently expelled from the 60 by Lady Celeria's controversial decision, represents old Galifar nobility struggling to maintain relevance in the post-war era. Their expulsion sent shockwaves through traditional aristocratic circles, demonstrating that even ancient lineage provides no guarantee of continued status. The family's response to this social catastrophe will likely shape their future. They might accept their diminished position and work to regain Lady Celeria's favor. Or they might become focal points for opposition to the Erting's dominance. The Boromir family, particularly Seddon Boromir, who received the Urmaro's place among the 60, represents the most dramatic example of social mobility in recent Skyway history. The Boromirs built their fortune through criminal enterprise, controlling gambling, smuggling, and other illicit activities throughout Sharn. Their elevation to the 60 legitimizes them in ways that mere wealth never could, transforming them from successful criminals into recognized members of high society. Seddon Boromir's attendance at the Tain Gala, his presence alongside families whose ancestors served kings and queens, marks a fundamental shift in what Skyway society considers acceptable. This could imply that the barriers between legitimate and illegitimate sources of wealth have become more permeable in the years following the last war. That Lady Celeria and others recognize that maintaining Skyway's position requires access to the kind of liquid capital and street-level connections that the Boromirs possess. The old aristocracy, with their wealth tied up in land and traditional investments, may need the flexibility that successful criminals can provide. Or it may simply represent pragmatic recognition that the Boromirs have become too powerful to exclude, that attempting to keep them out of Skyway society would accomplish nothing beyond making enemies of a family that controls significant portions of Sharn's underworld. The various dragon-marked heirs who maintain residences in Skyway occupy an ambiguous position in the social hierarchy, respected for their house's power and magical abilities, while not quite accepted as equals by traditional nobility. House Cannith heirs, whose ancestors helped build Sharn and develop the magical innovations that made the city possible, command particular respect. House Kundarak representatives, with their banking empire and unmatched security services, wield economic power that even the wealthiest noble families must acknowledge. Yet even these powerful individuals face subtle discrimination, invited to social functions, but not always welcomed into the innermost circles of aristocratic society. Lady Celeria Erting stands as the most influential individual in Skyway. Her control over the Tain Gala guest list, giving her power over the district's social hierarchy. Her decisions ripple outward, affecting business relationships, marriage prospects, political alliances, and the fundamental structure of elite society in Sharn. She wields this power with careful attention to tradition balanced by pragmatic recognition of changing realities. Her recent choices, particularly the expulsion of the Urmaro's family and elevation of Seddon Boromir, demonstrate willingness to make controversial decisions when she judges them necessary. Based on what we know about her position and influence, we can assume Lady Celeria carefully calculates every decision, weighing multiple factors before acting. She must maintain her family's preeminence while adapting to the post-war environment where old certainties no longer hold. She must satisfy traditional noble families who expect her to uphold aristocratic values while recognizing that Skyway's future may require embracing new sources of wealth and power. The balancing act she performs, deciding who belongs among the 60 and who does not, shapes not just Skyway, but Sharn's entire elite society. Evix Ermarasha, as both restaurateur and Skyway's representative on the Sharn City Council, exemplifies how political and economic power intertwine among the district's elite. Her position on the council allows her to advocate for policies that benefit Skyway residents, from maintaining security funding to ensuring that regulations favor the district's interests. Her restaurant provides a venue for gathering intelligence and facilitating connections between powerful individuals. The combination makes her one of the most informed people in Sharn, aware of political currents and social dynamics that others miss. Skyway's role in Greater Sharn extends far beyond the physical space occupied by the floating district. The approximately 1,200 residents control disproportionate wealth and influence, shaping policies and decisions that affect the city's entire population of over 200,000. The businesses owned by Skyway families, from the Erting's extensive property holdings to the various commercial ventures operated by other elite families, employ thousands of workers in the lower wards. The political connections maintained by Skyway residents extend to the royal court in Rote and to power centers across Breland and beyond. The district serves as Sharn's face to the outside world in many ways, with foreign dignitaries and important visitors entertained in Skyway's restaurants and estates. When ambassadors from other nations visit Sharn, they often find themselves invited to events in the floating district, carefully managed gatherings where Breland's elite can assess these visitors, and where first impressions are formed. The luxury and magical prowess on display in Skyway communicate messages about Breland's wealth and sophistication, about the nation's mastery of magic and commitment to excellence. In the context of Eberron as a whole, Skyway represents an extreme example of inequality amplified by magic, but not a unique one. Other cities and nations throughout the continent feature their own forms of magical privilege, places where wealth purchases access to enchantments and services unavailable to common folk. The dragon-marked houses themselves embody this dynamic. Their monopolistic control over certain forms of magic creating vast fortunes and power that ordinary citizens can never challenge. Skyway simply makes the inequality visible in the most literal way possible, physically elevating the elite above everyone else. The district's future remains uncertain in the years following the Treaty of Thronehold. The last war disrupted old hierarchies and created new fortunes, transforming Skyway from a symbol of Galifar unity into a more complex and contested space. The question now becomes whether the district will continue evolving toward a more fluid definition of elite status based primarily on wealth, or whether traditional noble families will attempt to reassert control and restore the aristocratic values that once governed access. Several factors will likely influence Skyway's trajectory in the coming years. The economic situation in Breland and across Corvair will determine whether traditional noble families can maintain their positions, or whether they must continue selling estates and accepting newcomers to generate needed capital. The dragon-marked house's continued growth and consolidation of power may eventually lead to house representatives dominating Skyway society. Their magical abilities and economic resources outweighing the prestige of ancient bloodlines. The criminal organizations like the Boromers, having gained entry to Skyway society, may open doors for other non-traditional sources of wealth, further diluting the old aristocracy's control. The physical infrastructure of Skyway will require ongoing investment to maintain. The manifest zone that makes the district possible shows no signs of weakening, but the magical systems overlaid on that natural phenomenon demand constant attention and periodic renewal. Whether control spells, security enchantments, the bridges and walkways connecting different sections of the district, all of these need maintenance funded by residents. If economic conditions deteriorate, if noble families find themselves unable to shoulder these costs, the district might face difficult choices about what services to maintain and what luxuries to sacrifice. The social tensions between Skyway and the lower wards could intensify in the post-war period. The last war created hardships throughout Sharn, with families losing members to the conflict, with economic disruptions affecting employment and trade, with refugees flooding into the city and straining already inadequate resources. The contrast between the suffering in the lower wards and the continued luxury in Skyway could eventually spark resentment that crosses the boundaries of class and geography, while direct conflict remains unlikely given the physical and magical barriers that protect the floating district. More subtle forms of resistance might emerge. The potential for political movements challenging Skyway's privileged position exists, though organizing such movements in Sharn's fragmented geography presents significant obstacles. The city's vertical structure isolates districts from one another, making coalition building difficult. The Watch maintains control over key transit points, able to restrict movement if threats to public order emerge. And most importantly, the lower classes remain focused on immediate survival rather than abstract political organizing. Yet history shows that conditions can change rapidly, that seemingly stable hierarchies can collapse when the dispossessed find leaders capable of channeling their grievances into action. From another perspective, Skyway might represent not the problem, but the aspiration, the proof that magic and wealth can create something extraordinary. Some inhabitants of the lower wards look up at the floating district, not with resentment, but with hope, believing that if they work hard enough, if they accumulate sufficient wealth, if they make the right connections, they too might someday rise to Skyway. This belief, whether realistic or not, serves to maintain the existing order by suggesting that the hierarchy is permeable, that success is possible for anyone with sufficient determination. The question of whether this belief reflects reality or serves as comforting illusion depends partly on your perspective. The elevation of families like the Boromers demonstrates that social mobility exists, that newcomers can enter Skyway society if they possess sufficient resources. Yet the barriers to accumulating such resources remain enormous for those born in the lower wards, where poverty, limited education, and lack of connections create obstacles that few overcome. The occasional success story may demonstrate possibility, while obscuring the far more common reality of intergenerational poverty and limited opportunity. As you contemplate Skyway floating above Sharn, this impossible district built on solidified clouds and sustained by magic and unlimited wealth, you confront fundamental questions about society, power, and the role of magic in shaping human civilization. The district represents achievement, the pinnacle of what magical architecture can accomplish, a testament to human ambition and ingenuity. It also represents inequality, so extreme it becomes physical reality, a manifestation of privilege that literally elevates some people above others. The residents of Skyway live lives of comfort and luxury that would have seemed impossible to previous generations, insulated from the struggles that define existence for most of Sharn's population. They dine on exotic cuisine in restaurants with spectacular views. They stroll through gardens that defy nature. They attend social gatherings where a single evening's entertainment costs more than most families earn in months. They grow up believing this represents normalcy, that the world is designed for their comfort, that their elevated position reflects natural order rather than accidents of birth, and the accumulated advantages of inherited wealth. The hundreds of thousands who live in the districts below experience a fundamentally different reality. They crowd into tenements owned by the Ertings and other Skyway families. They work in dangerous conditions in the cogs. They navigate daily threats of crime and violence in neighborhoods where the watch rarely ventures. They look up at Skyway floating in the distance and see everything they will never have, a realm as distant and unattainable as the stars. Some feel resentment, others resignation. Still others maintain hope that they or their children might somehow rise above their circumstances. The truth is that Skyway will continue floating above Sharn for the foreseeable future, sustained by the Serenia manifest zone and the wealth of its residents. The district will likely continue evolving, adapting to changing economic and social conditions, while maintaining its fundamental character as a space of extreme privilege. New families will purchase estates as old ones decline. Criminals will continue laundering their wealth into respectability. Dragon-marked houses will expand their influence, and Lady Celeria Ertain or her successors will continue deciding who belongs among the 60 and who does not. What you make of this, whether you see Skyway as inspiration or indictment, as achievement or atrocity, depends on your own values and experiences. The district exists as undeniable fact. 1,200 souls living literally above everyone else in the greatest city in Corvair. It challenges you to consider what magic should accomplish, whether power and wealth should be concentrated so extremely, what obligations the privileged owe to those below. These questions have no simple answers, but Skyway forces you to confront them every time you look up and see those impossible clouds floating in the sky, bearing their cargo of mansions and gardens, and the people who believe they deserve to live above the rest. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Skyway, the floating district of Sharn, where privilege becomes literal elevation, and where the inequalities of Eberron manifest in solidified clouds, suspended thousands of feet above the ground. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore of this impossible place, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. There are countless more stories waiting to be told, mysteries to explore, and corners of Eberron to examine together. Until next time, may your adventures take you to heights undreamed of, whether in the clouds above or in the depths below.